Yo, what up everyone? So today I'm gonna do some awesome bike maintenance, more specifically the brakes. And so I've been riding my bike around a lot, and of course the brakes wear out pretty quickly when you do that. But I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna do a 3-part mini series. It's gonna be specifically to change out the brake pads, how to bleed the brakes and change the fluid, and then how to wear in the brakes. So even though this is bike specific on mine, the 2012 Kawasaki Vulcan 900, the basic fundamentals apply to all bikes. All right then, well, I can't wait to get started. Let's do this. All right, so I repositioned my bike to expose my front brake caliper. So we're gonna take this off. We're gonna wash it, get all the dirt and grime off of it, reset it, put new brake pads in. But while we're doing that, I'm going to have to open up my reservoir for the front brake, because as I push in the new pad, what's going to happen is it's going to open it up and it's going to push fluid back and it's going to spill out. So first things first, I'm going to put a blanket on here, some protective stuff, because I tell you right now, if you don't already notice, brake fluid is extremely corrosive and it will eat your paint. No bueno. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Now here's a little tip. Now I got the reservoir right here. I already put a towel down, something to protect my tank. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some extra protection, because I know brake fluid is extremely corrosive to paint. So what I'm gonna do is, see if that works. Cut a slit in this. See if that works out in our favor. Oh, snap. So just a little bit extra protection. You know, we got some, there we go. And if you want to do another one crossways, you know, another slit in a different direction, well, I might as well do it now. So, you know, you definitely got a lot of protection. Tuck it up underneath. Cool. There we go. Voila. All right, so before I start getting into all the technical stuff, let me say that I do follow this manual. This is specifically for my bike, so make sure you get a good maintenance manual for your bike specifically. So since I covered the reservoir already, I'm gonna go ahead and start loosening these 2 bolts right here that hold the caliper to my rotor. And after that, we're gonna inspect it. So let's do that. If you look, this is kind of a tight fit here, so I'm gonna give myself a little bit of room. I'm going to remove the front fender. There's these 4 bolts, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. I'm just going to go ahead and take these off. This comes off the front fender bracket, and I'll remove that or loosen it so I can take that off. Oh, dropped it. All right, number 1. Don't want to lose these little washers. They're there for a reason. Cool. Ooh. The washer, nice. Oh, there we go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And see, I don't scratch up my paint. Lift this up, rotate that out of the way. See what we got going on here. Oh, nice. Now it's nice and clear. Cool. Next step, take off, loosen that. That was a cinch. Brake hose is free. I'll just leave that there. I'll put that on later. And then that clears that up a little bit. Now I just take off these 2 bolts. Because of the weight of the caliper, you probably want to use some kind of bungee cord to suspend and use to kind of help aid the weight of the caliper is actually relying on the hose. Last thing you want to do is create a leak here, and then you end up with a whole set of problems of having to replace more stuff. So let's try to do as minimal amount of damage as possible. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and loosen up these brake caliper bolts. Woo! That's on there, boy. That's on there, boy. Yeah, but guess what? I was on it. Oh no. Okay, cool. There we go. Let's do this one. Try not to torque it too hard, because you don't want to strip your bolts. So far I don't see any like evidence of fluid leakage or anything like that. Okay, bolts are free. So this is what I got. I got my bungee cord on standby. I did not apply any pressure to the brakes, so they should be open, and just wiggle it off somehow, some way. There you go, almost. So the whole thing is, try to take least amount of damage as possible, right? There we go. Whew, that's some weight behind that, so it's not dangling. You know what I'm saying? All right, cool. So while I got that suspended, right, I'm gonna go ahead and check out the rotor, see how it's doing, and let's inspect that. Cool. Okay, so to check my brake discs, or rotors, whatever you want to call them, so my brake disc, as your brake pads squeeze against your disc, it shaves off a little bit over time. So what happens is, there's a specification, like per my manual here, it says 4.5 millimeters is the thickness that's allowable. First things first, what I'm checking for is any nicks, grooves, anything that really catches my thumb, my nails, anywhere, even though there's lines or whatever like that. It's really smooth. I'm not catching anything, and I don't have a lip at the end. Sometimes it looks like a little T, if you know what I mean. So it's like, it, as the pad wears down or the disc wears down, it creates a little lip, because your brake pads are really touching here, not so much here at the end or here. You could actually see that. I checked the other side too, just making sure I'm not catching on anything. So let's go ahead and check the thickness of this. You shouldn't be changing this out quicker than your brake pads. Your pads are supposed to go out faster than this. This is almost like 400 bucks a piece, this round piece of metal. So I would be changing out more of these than these. Then I'll tell you why in a second, the types of pads or the material I chose for my new brake pads to try to save the cost on these. All right, let's go ahead and measure this out. All right, so what I got here is a micrometer. And what I'm gonna do is, first I'm gonna set it on 0. So hopefully you can see that it's zeroed out. And what I'm gonna do is measure at different spots. There's a 4.84. Okay, cool. Good with that. See, if I go over here towards the edge, my reading is 497. And if I go in a little bit more, 4.84. And what I do is I'm looking at different spots of the rotor just to make sure there's no uneven wear. Looks pretty consistent. The only thing I did is I actually ordered this online. This is the maybe I'll add a link to my video if you want to get yourself one, and you can always, it's kind of cool is that you can set it, it zeroes it out, all that good stuff. Just kind of go from there. So this looks like it's good. I'm in good shape there, so don't need to replace that, thank goodness. Now let's start working on this. You know, on second thought, before we start that, working on the brakes, actually the pads and caliper, let's clean this up. So I'm gonna grab some brake cleaner and a rag, put some gloves on because this stuff is hell on your skin, and let's clean this up. All right, so I'm gonna clean out the brake disc, okay? So I'm gonna just use regular old brake parts cleaner, okay? Now you notice I got gloves on because this stuff will eat the living hell out of your skin. So, and a lot of ventilation, okay, so you don't be breathing all this stuff. Now I've seen different ways of doing this. I got like automotive sandpaper, which is kind of similar to crocus cloth I used to use in the military to clean what do you call it, rust off my cannons in the Marine Corps. Or you can use this really soft steel wool grade, you know, the 4-0, super soft. Don't spray it all over the place, because if this eats up your skin, it's going to eat up the hell out of everything else, including your tires, and you don't want to do that. So one method that I saw and I really like is basically you go squirt some, woo-wee, that smells like hell. Anyways, squirt it on the rag, wipe all the way around. Matter of fact, it's starting eating the hell out of my shop towel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a cloth rag. Oh yeah, much better. Wow, look at that. It's not too bad, but could be cleaner. First, wiping down both sides of the rotor. Oh wow, look at that. There you go. Look at that, huh? Nah, look at that. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Because see, some of the material from the old brake pad is on here, and I don't want it to mix with the new brake pad material because that could cause some kind of adverse reaction, and you don't want to mess around with your brakes. You don't want to lose power. You don't want to do any of that stuff. You know what I mean? So let's do this. So I'm going to go ahead. You can do one of two ways. I'm going to do this first. And what you don't want to do, don't want to go hard, nice and light, is in a different direction. I'm going very, very lightly. Then I'm going to go by, pass through this again. Look at that. Yeah, it's coming up. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to look on this side so I can see what I'm working on. Scrub it very lightly, pass it over with some brake cleaner, and go on. Now what I ended up doing, the big stuff, I used the crocus cloth, remember, light in a pattern like this, not so much with the grain, but just all the way around, light pressure to get the big stuff off. And then I got this steel wool 4-0 grade, and I sprayed some of the brake cleaner on here. And what I did was I used that all the way around the kind of like a sponge, and it kind of went like this on both sides, kind of went all the way around, and then sopped it up with the cloth. Goes, well, these are your brakes, how clean do they have to be? Well, as clean as you want them to be. I mean, your life, it depends on these brakes, so it's up to you how clean you want these brakes. You know what I mean? You clean them until you are satisfied on how clean they are. Again, it's your preference, it's your life. I know what my life means to me, so enough about that. Anyways, looks pretty damn clean. What I did was, though, I made sure in the holes there's no lint, everything's nice and clean, because what happens is I don't want to trap anything in these holes into my brake pads and have like some other material or substance between my brake pad and my rotor or brake disc metal. So I am satisfied with this. So let's go ahead and let's get started with the caliper. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this apart. Okay, the caliper, the whole brake pads, take these all out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash this in a bucket of soap and water, just plain old dish soap. I am not going to use any brake cleaner on this. The reason being is brake cleaner, there's seals that are inside your pistons and everything like that, and these rubber boots. It will eat these up, and next thing you know, you'll end up squirting your brake fluid all over the place, and you'll have a catastrophic failure of your brakes. That's what you don't want to do. So nice, good, warm water. I mean, an old toothbrush. I got a little cup of water right here, but it's nice, strong, soapy water. I used a lot of soap in here, all right? So let's go ahead and start disassembling this bad boy. All right, so I got my needle nose pliers, and there's a cotter pin right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab that, pull that bad boy out. Try not to bend it. There we go. Cool. Let's go ahead and put that off to the side. All right, then you got this retaining pin that comes out. Cool. There we go. Put that off to the side. Then we got one brake pad that's simply gonna flip up, and it's on this retaining pin and comes out. The surface looks pretty ate up. I don't know if you can see it or not. I mean, it's still got some meat on there, but as I said, it's kind of old, kind of way to the wayside kind of deals. And then we just go ahead, and this one should just pop on out just like that. It just comes out. Simple. That one too. Let's take a look. You see all the wear marks on it. Looks like it's got a pretty dirty surface. So yeah, they're kind of due for a change. All right, so if you look inside of this, there's the what they call is the pad spring, which is this copper looking piece right here that helps keep the pads from rattling around. We just want to make sure it's properly seated, doesn't look damaged. These are called the pistons themselves. So these two things right here, these cylinders pop out and in just like that. Now that's the reason why we are not going to use brake cleaners, because there are seals. They're like each one right on both of these right in here, and they're designed in a way to keep the brake fluid in and allows the pistons to go out and come in without leakage. And the brake cleaner will eat those up and they'll start bleeding brake fluid all over the place. So this is what we're gonna do. These are all rubber booties, all this other good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and start cleaning. Now, soap and water will not harm your pad. Oh my gosh, look at all of that. Look how clean that it's already starting to get, or how dirty it was. The whole thing is, don't be shy, get in there. The soap that I'm using is just good old-fashioned Dawn soap. They use it like for birds and stuff like that, you know, oil spills. Big tip is these pistons, you need to clean those, because what's going to happen is when we change the pads, we're going to have to push those back in. Now all the grind and grit that's on these pistons, if you don't want to scratch these pistons at all, okay, so you don't want any nicks or burrs, because that'll cause leakage and it'll wear out your seals. So the big thing is when you're cleaning these, make sure you clean them well, because when you push them back in, you don't want them to damage those seals. And right now, since I don't have any leaking, I'm not going to disassemble. That's why I said this video is not going to be disassembling the entire caliper. Only thing I'm doing is I'm cleaning this out, changing the brake pads, cleaning some good stuff, and then we're going to put it all back together, okay? Again, how clean does this have to be? It's your life. You tell yourself how clean you want these to be. Fair enough? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrub and I'm going to clean everything on this. Rinse it off. Oh man. Oops. Oh well. Fix that in a second. Nothing's going to be damaged in there. All right. Also, just remember, you need to clean all these little parts too, okay? So when you go in there with your brush, remember, just go ahead, clean it. And while you're cleaning, you want to inspect. So this is that little retaining pin that initially first pulled out when I pulled the cotter pin out to release the brake pads. And the one thing I need to look at, I have to make sure that there's no valleys, like, you know, grooves from the plates wearing down in there, because what happens is the plates need to run freely up and down this pin. So if you look, it's nice and straight. Make sure you guys can see this. It's nice and straight with no pitting or like those grooves, okay? There should be no grooves in here whatsoever. Remember, your pads are supposed to come together flat at the same time, not at a V or, you know, at different times. So when the cylinders or pistons push in, everything has to come in flat so it grips your disc square on, flush, because once it starts pinching like that, then that's when you get the all uneven wear and your pads will wear out, and your brakes obviously won't be as effective because there'll be less contact patch or contact surface between your brake pads and your brake disc. Just want to make sure that nothing's damaged, everything's good to go. Clean off the gunk, and that's about it. Let it air dry before I start putting everything together, because I don't want any rust in my caliper or my brake system. Once I get to that point where it's nice and dry, then I'll go put the brake pads in, and then I'll show you what you need to do with the master cylinder over there with the brake fluid. Because okay, so while that's still air drying, before I could put the pistons in, push the pistons back in to put the new brake pads in, I got to open this up, the master cylinder for the front brakes, and remove some of the fluid in there. Okay, here we go. Got our stuff together. Open that up. Open this bad boy up. There's the reservoir. Let's put that down on the someplace where it won't get too dirty. Pull this out gently, don't try to tear it. And there we go. So there's some fluid in there. It looks like it's kind of like a Coca-Cola color. Already got a bottle to put my stuff in. I kind of drilled a hole right here with a vent hole. You'll see why I'm going to do that. I'm going to use this to bleed my brakes. This syringe, I got it like CVS or Walmart or something. It's like the ones you use for kids or pets. So I'm just going to go ahead, move some of this brake fluid out, put it in the soda bottle. Now I don't want to empty it all the way because I don't want air in my brake system. Once you get air bubbles in your brake system, that's a whole nother set of headache that you don't want. Now since I got that taken care of, I should be okay with some man sauce. Start pushing these bad boys back in. Oh, I heard something. Okay. Oh no, it's squirting all over the place. Not cool. Okay, I gotta do some triaging. I didn't pull out enough. Look what happened. Oh crap. Oh no. Got all over my paint. All right, everybody, excuse me while I stop the camera to clean up my mess. Okay, hopefully crisis averted. So I don't know if you saw that when I pushed in the pistons, the little bit of brake fluid I had in my master cylinder right here squirted all the way out to my seat and all over my tank and everything else. I quickly wiped everything down, sprayed it down as best I could with more wax. Thank God I waxed my stuff. So hopefully nothing happens. Anyways, okay, so I remembered a pro tip is to keep the cap on the reservoir so it wouldn't do that. And I totally forgot to do that before I did it. And I hope you learned from my mistake. Let's move on. All right, it's nice and dry, looks clean, everything looks good. It's time to put this bad boy together. All right, so these are the type of pads I'm going to use. It's from EBC brake pads, and these are called semi-sintered, or some of them call them half organic, and that's because they are not fully metallic. So these are OEM and they're considered sintered. If you don't know what sintered means, that basically they're made of a metallic compound formed and pressed together under high temperatures and heat to make these. Different compounds do different things. So there's sintered, then you have semi-sintered, which is what I chose here, and then you have what they call as organic. Now what's the difference? Well, organics, they have aramids, like they might be made of Kevlar and some other organic compounds that are not metallic. So let's talk about what organic does. Organic is going to be soft and it won't wear down your brake discs or rotors that fast because it's soft material against a hard material. The downside is they do heat up fast and they do wear down fast. So you're going to be changing out your brake pads, going through this procedure of changing out your brakes a lot more frequently. Now let's talk about sintered. Sintered is metallic, so metal on metal. Obviously it's going to wear down your brake pads or your brake discs, your rotors, a lot faster. Okay, but they grab hard. They have a high threshold for heat. They don't fade as fast. What I mean by fade is when your brakes get hot, they won't, you know, they'll still perform, while organic brakes do get hot faster and you'll get what they call as brake fade. Me, I ride around, I do a lot of Moto Jitsu stuff or like Moto Gymkhana, but I like, for the most part, I like to just enjoy the twisties on a ride, so I don't really aggressively brake super hard like I do for track day. And also I just want something that has a little bit more stopping power than organics. Okay, so in between you have half organic and half sintered, which is they call semi-sintered, and this is what we're going to put in to my bike. So first things first, before my catastrophic event, I push back the pistons. Then next I'm going to go ahead and start assembling my caliper together. All right, so as I'm putting back together my caliper, I'm going to use some grease on parts that do move, but parts I got to really be careful about or avoiding putting grease or anything contaminant on the brake pad surface. Do not put it on the brake pad material itself that makes contact with your rotor or disc right there, okay? So everything that moves, I'm gonna go ahead and put some grease on. Now this is a very special grease, okay? This one is from, I'm using Permatex Silicone Ceramic Extreme for brake parts lubricant, and it has to be silicone based so it doesn't eat the rubber boots or seals on my caliper, okay? So very important. Put a little bit on there, a little something, right? Less is more. I don't want to gunk it all up. This is where the brake pads are going to sit on, so you definitely want to grease that up. Okay, cool. I think we're good there. Oh, I almost did that. Okay, here's my boot. Okay, there we go. This goes on right here. Putting that back together. Make sure the boot goes back on. Nice fit. There we go. Yes. That's what we want right there. Very good, very good. Tad it there. I don't want to put too much because I do not want dust and road grime to stick all over my stuff. Now the first part is this one, so I'm just gonna rub a little bit on the back. Okay, be very careful. And the reason I'm putting this on the back is because when the pistons touch, it won't be corrosive. You know, I won't get corrosion, even though this has some paint, but at the same time it'll kind of get rid of that clicky clinky noise. So let's do this. All right, so we go ahead and put this back one on there, like so. Next pad. Make sure it's all nice and clean. A little bit goes a long way. Okay. Be very careful not to touch the actual pad material with this stuff. Okay. Actually, this goes this way. Big hole to here, like so. Just like that. Okay. Good. Then, hopefully, this will stay put so I can work on this. Okay. So we go from here. Okay. So what I did was I pushed the pin all the way through. You gotta make sure that my brakes are apart. Now I'm gonna put the cotter pin in back in place right there. Okay, so I got the cotter pin started right there. I put some grease on it too, because I don't want it to, you know, rust or anything like that. And that's it, right in there, just like that. So the next step is I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in its brackets. Okay, sometimes you might have to just wiggle it in. Ah, there we go. Okay, so go line it up, put the 2 bolts in, and not tighten them down all the way just yet. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten this down to about hand tight, so where I can't tighten it anymore. I'm going to leave a little bit of wiggle room just so when I apply the brakes, see how it has a little bit of wiggle room? I want to be able to apply the brakes, and then the brakes are going to set on the rotor flush. And while I do that, then I could go ahead and tighten everything down. Now, before I go and start squeezing the brake lever, look at this. There's like almost no brake fluid in there. I do not want to go too low because I'll get air in my lines, and that's a headache and a half. So what I want to do, as much as I am tempted to put this whatever I took out back in there, do not. I will resist every urge, because if you look in this stuff, there are actually little floaties in there, and I do not want that contamination inside my brake system. So what I'm going to do is, this is what I bought to replace the brake fluid. I'm just going to put just a little bit in here, just enough so I can go ahead and actuate the brakes, because the brakes are open right now, or they're pushed all the way back. And if I apply, it's obviously fluid's going to go in and it's going to create a suction. So I need to go ahead and replace that first before I actuate the brakes. All right, so I topped off my brake fluid. I'm going to put my cap on, right? Learn my lesson. Okay, cool. And what I'm going to do is apply slow, steady pressure until see what's going to happen. See, it's gone down a little bit. Continue to squeeze the brakes. Now I feel the grip. Now squeezing the brakes until right there. Okay, I can't squeeze it anymore. That tells me that this should be laying on the rotor. I don't know if you can see it or not. Cool. So the pads are flat on the rotor or the brake disc. I got that pressure buildup. Now it's time to tighten down the bolts to spec. All right, so to tighten my caliper down, my caliper bolts to spec, this is a great investment that you probably should need is a torque wrench. And you can set the poundage, foot pounds. So according to the manual, it is install caliper bolts and tighten brake caliper bolts to 25 foot-pounds. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, here's the first bolt. Cool, that's 25. Now let's do the bottom bolt. And what you want to do is just not just once, but keep doing it so you hear the click. Okay, because each time you do that, the bolt moves a smidget. There you go. And of course, don't forget to put your brake hose back in your hose clamp holder. Well, everyone, so that's it. That's how you change the brake pads on your bike. On top of that, how you clean the caliper, without breaking it down, clean the rotor, all that good stuff. It's pretty easy, even though it's bike specific for this video for the 2012 Kawasaki Vulcan 900. The fundamentals still come into play for every bike. Just the big part, make sure you get yourself a maintenance manual like this for your bike specifically. But honestly, it took me a couple hours because, I had to narrate and video what I was going to do. But if I was to sit here and do it, an hour maybe tops. But anyways, the next thing I'm going to do is change out bleed my brakes, change out the brake fluid on the front and rear brakes. It's really easy to do. And that's going to be my next video, but this is one of 3. But if anything else, if you like this video, please, like and share it. And of course, smash that subscribe button. Totally would appreciate it. And of course, until next time, peace.